On stablecoin. Behind this technical name, which may sound intimidating, lies nothing more than a new speculative bubble. It is, shall we say, an invention, correct? They invent a currency, let us call it that, which however is not a real currency as it is not backed by a state. There are two historical comparisons that help us understand this. Incidentally, I discussed this with Professor Savona, Paolo Savona, whom I interviewed on this very subject. He had just finished his term as president of Consop, the Italian stock exchange regulator, and the next day I sent him an email asking for an interview, and he said, "Okay, send me 3 questions." I sent him 30. Of course, he reduced them. There are two historical comparisons. One is the famous Amsterdam tulip bubble, and two, the famous South Sea bubble, which is a French thing, the famous John Law bubble. So for those of you who are watching us, I invite you to search the internet for the history of these two bubbles, the Amsterdam tulip bubble and John Law's South Sea bubble. Aspects of these two bubbles are both encapsulated in this new bubble. So, there is this aspect of the stablecoin, this digital currency, the virtual currency that is being launched in the United States of America. Just think, thanks to the new law passed by the US Congress called Genius Act, an acronym designed specifically for this purpose, banks, but not only banks, businesses, in short, anyone can apply for and in theory obtain a license to issue this virtual currency, their own virtual currency. Stablecoin is similar to Bitcoin. In fact, Bitcoin is the mother of all virtual currencies, right? It is the same thing, but a little different. They offer it as more stable, hence the name stablecoin, because in theory it is pegged to the value of US government bonds. That is, if I, Claudio Celani, buy this new stablecoin that is offered to me, I don't know, by a bank or by an issuer that already exists, there is one that already has 65 to 70% of the market. That is Tether, which is American. And coincidentally, the investment of this Tether are managed by the financial company of which the current US Secretary of Commerce was a part. They manage the investment of this stablecoin issuer. And the second one is called Circle, and its investments are managed by BlackRock. So we end up with the usual suspects. Okay, I, Claudio Celani, who go to stablecoin, I go to Circle and buy, say, 1,000 euros of its stablecoin. So they guarantee that whenever I want my money back, they will give it back to me instantly because they immediately buy US government bonds with my money. So my stablecoin is worth 1-to-1 with US government bonds. So, is this convenient for me? As a private person, it's not convenient for me because I could buy US government bonds directly. Why not? Since they don't even give me the yield on these US government bonds. So why would it be convenient for me? Well, it would be convenient if I were a big bank, a big corporation, a big commercial enterprise, or a big criminal enterprise that needs to make cross-border transfers in real time. Because the advantage of these virtual currencies is that you make the transfer yourself, not your bank. You press a button and the money is transferred. So I, a large company, press a button and the money is transferred instantly, faster than my thoughts. So this is the reason, among other things, why Europe is very cautious. And there is a difference at this point between American and European finance, because if this speculative bubble works, it will certainly work in the first phase because, thanks to this technical prerogative, so to speak, of speed, cost reduction, etc., etc. Elimination of intermediaries, large companies are already rushing to buy these stablecoins. So this creates a demand for stablecoins, and coin issuers, according to the rules, have to buy as many US public debt and lower its costs, right? So do we solve the debt problem? Well, there are a few problems. First, stablecoin issuers will buy short-term, very short-term securities because these have to be ready to give the money back when the customer says, I want my money back. So they need to have liquid securities, as liquid as possible. So this is a problem for US debt because you create immediate demand for it, yes, but you also worsen its quality because short-term government securities are the least attractive for the stability of US debt. The second problem is that just as as it rises in the first phase, this bubble will fall in the second phase, and since these stablecoin issuers are not sitting idly by, they use the securities portfolio they have put together, which is not theirs, but is on desk deposit, but they use it as banks or other financial companies use it today as collateral to obtain loans on the financial market and then speculate on it. This is how they make big profits. So you see that the mechanism of so-called derivatives is triggered, which is a mechanism that amplifies the fluctuations of the underlying real asset. So if the US government bond fluctuates by a few cents, a few tenths, a few units, then this will have a huge impact on derivatives, because what are derivatives? They are bets on the performance of these US securities, the same US securities interest rates that are then, how shall we say, dependent on how US securities move, right? It's the same old story that we discovered, let's say, during the 2008 financial crisis.
Appunto, appunto.
So anyone who says this will cause another financial crisis like 2008 is right. The famous American Senator Elizabeth Warren, who knows a lot about finance, but a little bit less about politics, because, let's say, she is somewhat affected by what is called Trump derangement syndrome, which is a syndrome of imbalance caused by Trump. When she has to intervene in politics, she can no longer see clearly, like all American Democrats. However, she is very competent financially. She fought in Congress to get the Democrats, her Democrats, to vote against it, but she did not succeed. And she rightly says, as we have seen, this is the result of all the deregulation we have seen since 1995. In 1995, the famous banking separation in the United States, the Glass-Steagall Act, was abolished, and the World Trade Organization was also founded. If you want, we can talk about that too, because these things are connected. So a new financial bubble is starting in America, or rather, it has already started, which worries not only decent people and honest economists, but also part of the financial world of the so-called banksters. And here we come to Europe. Why is Europe worried? Because this will take capital away from Europe, and it will all go to America. In Europe, it's not that our financiers, those who speculate on the stock market, are saints. They jump at any opportunity for short-term profit, right? And so this will weaken the European system, which, unlike the American system, is much more dependent on banks. Here in Europe, for better or worse, it is the banks that provide credit and act as intermediaries. This is not the case in America, where companies finance themselves more on the market with bond issues. There is this big difference, which is why people I don't like, whom I don't respect, whom I have always attacked, indeed whom I think should not exist, such as the European Central Bank, are concerned about this and are trying in some way to pop up barriers, but barriers do not exist in the system. How can you curb something like that? There is a cancer that invades you when your doors are wide open. You can close them. You could close them if we go back to the famous banking separation, but that means completely changing the system. And I, despite trying to convert the central banker Trichet to return to banking separation, I did not succeed, and nothing, they certainly won't do it.